It was supposed to be routine. An anonymous tip, a foster home, a welfare check. Margaret Ellison had done dozens before. But this one sat on a remote hill near the Catskill foothills, buried under snow and radio silence. No school reports, no hospital records, no photos, just a name, the Cold House. The roads were barely ploughed. Her tires skated over ice, the wind howling like it had something to say. By the time she saw the home, nestled like a forgotten relic beneath frost-covered trees, Margaret had already lost reception and light. The couple greeted her with practiced smiles, ushering her in with apologies about the storm. Inside, the fire danced, but the cold was worse than outside. Still, Margaret smiled. She clicked on her tape recorder. Initial welfare check, February 14th, 1968. House is occupied. Appears safe. She would only hear that line once, because the next time it played, it wasn't her voice. The front door groaned shut behind me with the finality of a tomb. I caught a last glimpse of the snow-covered trees before frost reclaimed the windows in a slow crawl of white. Inside, the Cold House lived up to its name. The warmth from the fire was a trick of the eye. I could see the flames, hear the crackle. But the cold had sunk into the walls, the floors, the bones. The woman introduced herself as Mrs. Drexel. Thin-lipped, polite, she had the careful movements of someone used to walking on eggshells. Her husband, Mr. Drexel, emerged from the hall with a distant look and the same unsettling smile. Their hands were dry and cold, like paper. They led me to the sitting room, where a fire danced in a large stone hearth. Despite my gloves, I rubbed my hands together as if friction could thaw my fingertips. Victorian portraits lined every wall, sepia-toned children in stiff clothes, staring out with solemn eyes. "Where are the children now?" I asked, clicking on my tape recorder again. I kept my tone even, professional. "Upstairs," Mrs. Drexel said. "They're delicate. We try not to overstimulate them." "Do they go to school?" "They're homeschooled," Mr. Drexel replied quickly. "With the weather, it's best." I made a note of it. My pen's ink moved sluggishly in the cold. As I wrote, I heard it, a soft humming, barely audible. It might have come from the vents or the floorboards, a lullaby, but wrong. Each note dragged, warped backward, like a record spun the wrong way. "Do you hear that?" I asked. The Drexels exchanged a look. "Just the wind," Mr. Drexel said. I requested a tour. They hesitated, but agreed. The upper floor was worse. My breath fogged with each exhale. The bedrooms were pristine, too pristine. Beds perfectly made, toys untouched, no signs of use, no socks on the floor, no drawings on the walls. I opened a wardrobe. Inside were old dresses and suits, mothballed, not meant for play. The humming was louder now. I followed it to a door at the end of the hall. It had no handle, only a keyhole, dark, yawning. "That's the attic," Mrs. Drexel said, her voice clipped. "We keep it locked. Drafts." "May I see it?" "No." Mr. Drexel's answer was hard and immediate. They ushered me downstairs. I glanced once more at the door. Something behind it had stopped humming. Something behind it was listening. At dinner, I made another recording. I asked again about the children. Names, ages, medical records. They responded with vague warmth. Lila is 6, Tommy is 9. But they wouldn't bring them to see me. They insisted the children were resting. When I asked to call my supervisor, they claimed the lines were down. I checked my coat pocket for my keys. Gone. I searched the entry table, the cushions. Nothing. "Perhaps you dropped them outside," Mrs. Drexel said with a tilt of her head. I did not believe her. That night, they offered me a guest room. I had no choice but to accept. I sat in the icy sheets, coat still on, tape recorder on the bedside table. I pressed record. "Margaret Ellison, 10:43 p.m. I am stranded here. The couple is evasive. I have not seen the children. There is..." Thud. The wall beside me trembled. I held my breath. Thud, thud. Closer. In the wall. From inside the wall. I stood. I pressed my ear to the wallpaper. An old floral pattern, cracked with age. "Help us," a voice whispered. No louder than breath. I recoiled. Down the hall, a door creaked open on its own. Candlelight flickered inside. The attic door. I should have waited until morning. I didn't. I brought the recorder with me. Each step groaned. The house didn't like me moving. I knew that now. I reached the attic door. It was open, just enough to see darkness behind it. The air pouring out was impossibly cold. Inside were dolls, hundreds, all old, all glass-eyed, and portraits, framed sketches of children. But when I looked closer, they weren't drawings. They were impressions, as if something had pressed against fabric from the other side. And in the center of the room stood a crib. Empty. I turned to leave. But the door had shut. I reached for the knob. There was none. The recorder hissed. Then, "They're not their children anymore." It was my voice, but I never said those words. In the corner, something stood. Small. Pale. Eyes like empty wells. "Lila," I whispered. It opened its mouth, and the lullaby started again. I backed against the far wall of the attic, my breath catching invisible plumes. The child, Lila, if that's what it had once been, stepped forward, its feet silent on the old floorboards. I couldn't hear my own heartbeat anymore, just the sound of that inverted lullaby pulsing through the walls. The child raised one hand and pointed to the ceiling. I followed the gesture and saw rows of jagged claw marks above me, etched deeply into the rafters. Not from animals, from fingers. Dozens of them. Then I saw them. Eyes. Sets of eyes watching from the walls themselves, glassy, some blinking, some not. They were in the seams of the paneling, behind torn wallpaper, beneath the floorboards. Some still looked human. I turned back to the child. Gone. The door creaked behind me and I sprinted for it, wrenching it open with both hands. No resistance. As though it had never been locked at all. I ran down the stairs 2 at a time, half slipping on the banister, catching myself on the rail. At the bottom, the house had changed. The portraits were different. More children now, each one with eyes eerily like the ones I'd just seen upstairs. I recognized one of the new faces. It was mine. I tore the frame from the wall. It was real. Painted in oil, dated at the bottom corner, 1968. I stumbled into the kitchen. Mr. Drexel stood at the counter, slicing bread methodically. He looked up and smiled like nothing had happened. "You found the nursery," he said. "Those aren't children," I said, barely recognizing my voice. "They're not even alive." He tilted his head. "Alive is such a temporary state. Mrs. Drexel entered from the hallway. She held my recorder in one hand and my keys in the other. I stepped toward her, but she backed away, shaking her head gently. "They like you," she whispered. "You're strong. You lasted longer than the last one." I demanded my things. I screamed. I threatened. But they just watched, their eyes slowly dimming, like dolls. I grabbed my coat and ran for the front door. It opened easily, again as if mocking me. The wind hit me like a wall. The snow was waist deep. My car was half buried. The trees looked wrong somehow, their limbs twisted as though in agony, faces hidden in bark. Watching. I made it to the car, broke the ice off the handle, climbed in and locked the doors. The keys worked. The engine started. I reversed blindly down the path, tires spinning, praying I wouldn't hit a drift too deep to pass. Only when I reached the road did I realize my tape recorder was still on the passenger seat. I hadn't brought it with me. I was sure I hadn't. But it was there. Red light blinking, as if it had never stopped recording. I picked it up, pressed stop, and rewound. The playback started as expected. My voice, notes, questions, then static. Then the words, "They're not their children anymore," followed by laughter, childlike, then distorted. I threw it into the back seat. I didn't sleep that night. I drove until sunrise and reported everything I could. They sent another worker to verify. She never came back. They claimed the address didn't exist. When I returned to the site a week later with police, there was nothing there. No house, no Drexels, just woods, blanketed in ice. Not even tire tracks. I never worked again. Not officially. I couldn't. The state closed my file, labeled me unstable, trauma-induced breakdown. They said the tape was blank. But I hear that lullaby sometimes, especially in the cold. And once, outside my apartment window, I swear I saw a child standing in the snow, pale, watching, just like before. I blinked. She was gone. But I found something the next morning, left on my doorstep in the frost. A new portrait. Framed, signed at the bottom. 1969. I burned the portrait. I lit a match in the sink and watched my own painted eyes crinkle and blacken. But even in flames, it didn't seem to suffer. It almost smiled. I moved apartments. I left the city. Changed my number. I told no one. But the cold followed. My new place has radiators that never work, ice on the windows in summer. And once, I caught my reflection lagging behind, blinking just a second too late. Last week, I heard humming through the air vent. A lullaby played backward. I haven't slept since. Yesterday, I found a key in my mailbox. Old, iron, cold to the touch, even in my palm. There's no label, no note, but I know exactly which door it opens. They say the cold house never existed, that the Drexels were never registered foster parents, that no one named Margaret Ellison ever filed a report from that region in 1968. But something did. 2 years ago, a demolition crew clearing space for a new ski resort in the Catskill foothills unearthed a foundation beneath the snow. Just the outline of a house. Charred beams, stone stairs leading to nowhere. Inside the wreckage, beneath warped flooring, they found dozens of framed portraits. Children with black button eyes, sketched in soot and ash. Tucked between 2 floorboards was a single reel-to-reel recorder. Water damaged. Unusable. Except for one thing. The tape inside had a single recording. Just 6 words, on a loop, in a woman's voice. They're not their children anymore. The crew quit the next day. The resort was never built. And locals, they avoid the hill now. They say when the wind turns bitter and the air stills, you can hear it. A lullaby, sweet, backward. And if you follow it...
And so, the shadows stretch further, and the mystery only deepens. But this is far from the end. It's merely the beginning. What lingers beyond the door? Who is whispering your name? And what is that shifting in the corner of your eye? The answers await in the next chapter of these chilling tales. Subscribe to Nightfall Crypt and hit the notification bell, because the crypt's secrets are endless and the darkness never sleeps. Until next time, stay in the light if you can.